As the title denotes, we have made it. If you're listening to this, it is probably Monday morning, maybe even Tuesday morning. College basketball is back. I can't believe it, Brad. I mean, all summer long, all these deep dive previews, all these conference previews, we finally made it. I got a chance to see real college basketball on Friday night. Northwestern at Welsh Ryan versus a D2 team. Welsh Ryan is unbelievably beautiful. Northwestern looked very, very good. It was a fun night to be a fan of college basketball, a fun night to be a fan of Northwestern. And Brad, we've got a fun episode planned today because we're going to go through some kind of season-long prop bet type wagers, just a bunch of takes that we've been kind of thinking about all summer. We're gonna put down a final opinion on some of these, and hopefully have a good amount of diverging opinions between us. And if we agree, we can kind of be us against the world, because there are a few takes I think that we've agreed on, but most of college basketball doesn't seem to. So definitely going to be a fun podcast, and we'll do some pick 'em for the early season games as we get things underway here on Tuesday.
Yeah, I got this idea for keeping track of this stuff. So when I was, I think in middle school, I was really into fantasy baseball, and there was the ESPN Fantasy Baseball podcast, and they would have these segments where they would put it on the board and they would kind of track these predictions. And you don't really see that too much in terms of people who make predictions and then kind of follow through with them and kind of revisit them and kind of evaluate them. So I think this is going to be a very useful and very interesting exercise. In terms of the season, the next day and a half is going to be absolutely excruciating. There's no way around it. We're so close. It's been 7 months, but now this is going to be a very long, 36 hours?
Yeah, tomorrow is going to be a tough one. I mean, I've been kept occupied by football on all day Saturday, and kind of all week last week was just kind of occupied in my mind of Welsh Ryan and then Northwestern Notre Dame. And so it was a super exciting weekend. But then knowing that I have to sit through an entire Monday, it's going to be tough. I don't know how I'm going to make it through. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm excited to do this little season wager idea. I think it's a great one, Brad. So why don't we get underway with it? We have listed on our list of potential ones. We have 34. We're just going to kind of go through as many as we can, pump out some takes, see what we say. So the first one that we have down here, Quentin Grimes will not be a first-round pick in the 2019 draft. Brad, I'm assuming this is a take of yours. I know you said you were not very high on Quentin Grimes when you saw him at the, I believe it was at U18, U19 this summer. For me, I haven't seen enough of him to be that far off the bandwagon of Quentin Grimes. I saw a little bit of him in the D2 exhibition, and he looked just very kind of a mature scoring guard, someone in the Malik Newman mold, but I think a little bit better of a shooter. So I think for me, I think I got to bet on him being a first rounder, at least in a weak class.
Yeah, so it was interesting because my last semester of grad school was during the summer, and we had a 6 to 9 p.m. class. So all these U18 games start at 6. So it was this perfect fit where pretty uninterrupted. I could watch these games on my laptop. And in terms of Quentin Grimes, I was absolutely shocked when he won the MVP at the end, because I thought clearly Cole Anthony was better. I thought clearly Kobe White was better. Even a guy Matthew Hurt, who wasn't as aggressive as I would like, kind of being that tertiary offensive piece. But I thought he was certainly better than Quentin Grimes. Grimes is just, the Malik Newman comparison is good. I think Newman is a more explosive athlete and a better shooter, while Grimes is a better defensive player and kind of a more polished player. The thing with Grimes, though, he's, I think, an average athlete. In terms of NBA standards, he may even be a below-average athlete. He's not a point guard. He's kind of like a combo guard, but he doesn't shoot the ball very well, and he doesn't really have a distinct skill to kind of separate him. I think a lot of people see him, this kind of new age, positionless basketball. Maybe he could be a Josh Richardson type, or a Karis LeVert, but I don't think he has the athleticism or the skill of of those two guys. I think he's for me someone who is clearly like one of those guys, like a Malik Newman, who we look, or like an Andrew Harrison even could be a better comparison, where we look up in May or April and we say, why was this guy ranked as a top 10 prospect coming into the season?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have seen more of Quentin Grimes than me, so I won't necessarily doubt what you're saying. I just think it'll be really interesting, given, I mean, it's such a consensus thing that Quentin Grimes is a lottery pick in this class that it would be pretty surprising, but there is a guy or two every year that does this, so I guess it's not that crazy. So if you're going to go with he is a not first rounder, I'm going to stick with a first round. I think if you said not a lottery pick, I might jump in there with you. Not first round. I think that's a little aggressive. So I'm going to bet on the talent, assuming he leaves early, which he will.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, every year, like it's almost impossible to identify these guys preseason. But Andrew Harrison was like a unanimous top 5 pick in the preseason. Even guys who panned out like DeAndre Jordan and Hassan Whiteside were preseason super highly ranked in terms of draft picks. Then kind of fell into the second round. There's guys every year. There's like your Josh Selby's, Malik Newman. There's one other guy recently who went. Trayvon Duvall from last year too. So it's more common than you think, but it's super difficult to identify.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move it on to our next one. UCLA misses the NCAA tournament. I'm all in. UCLA I don't think they're making the tournament this year. They have one ball handler. He turns the ball over a fair amount, Jalen Hands. I thought Moses Brown played well in their D2 exhibition, but a 7-footer should play well against the D2 team. To me, I have no problem jumping aboard this take.
See, if this was UCLA is not a top 25 team, like they're currently ranked in the top 25, which is absurd, I would say, there's no way that they're a top 25 team. And it could be rough to start the season now that Cody Riley is also injured. He's one of like their 4 or 5 injured guys right now. But I think that they can still sneak into the NCAA tournament. I have them currently right out like as my 5th to last team in. So I think I'm going to stick with them despite the injuries as a team that can make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the injuries, with me being down on Steve Alford, they've been right there the last couple of years, just on the bubble, with the exception of the Alonzo year. I'm pretty down on this program as a whole right now. I would say no tournament for them.
Yeah, and I mean, one reason why I'm super super confident that they won't be a top 25 team is because they had Aaron Holiday and Thomas Welsh, who both were drafted into the NBA last season, and they were a fringe bubble team. They were a fringe tournament team. They were a legitimate bubble team. But now you take those 2 guys off, especially Holiday, who's one of the best players in the entire country, and you're going to jump from 45 all the way to 21. That's absurd. I mean, it's not like you're adding top 10 freshmen. Like, you're adding some really good freshmen, like Moses Brown's top 25. Cody Riley, because he redshirted last year with a suspension. If he were in the class of 2018, he'd probably be in that same range, top 25, top 30. But it's just not. I don't think that Hands and Wilkes can make a big enough jump to kind of balance the losses of Holiday and Welsh.
Yeah, I think the top 25 stuff is absolutely absurd. Let's move it on. Maryland will not make the NCAA tournament. I'll say they don't make the tournament. I think they just missed the cut.
All right, so this is one where we're both on the same side because I'm very down on this Maryland team. Although I've been down on them so long that I'm starting to have a lot of self-doubt about this. But I mean, this is a team that turned the ball over a lot last year, and is going to have kind of less creators now that Kevin Herter is gone. Less floor spacing. They're going to play 2 traditional bigs together in Fernando and Smith. I think that the floor spacing could be tight. I don't think that the turnover problem will go away. And I think you're essentially saying if you have Maryland in your top 25, which many people do, that they're going to be significantly better without Kevin Herter, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I think we're both on the same page here.
Yeah, just wanted to quickly shout out Kevin Herter, who is starting to really play well in the NBA. He's had a couple good games in a row. So upstate New York represent. Shout out Kevin Herter.
Okay, so next we have NC State will finish inside the top 25. Kevin, where do you have the Wolfpack currently?
I believe I had them just outside of my top 25. That's a really tough decision. I mean, it's truly like, how much do you trust Derek Funderburk? I think they finish in the top 25. I think I'll jump in with you on that one.
All right, so we're both on the same side. I'm very high on NC State. I have them, I think, 15th or 16th in my top 25. I love their collection of wings. I think Devin Daniels is being significantly overlooked, and CJ Bryce is that perfect fit, kind of coming back to Kevin Keats' system. He played for Keats at UNC Wilmington, playing that small ball four. Markell Johnson had a sneaky good sophomore season. Then you mentioned Derek Funderburk, one of the top JUCO transfers in the country, probably manning that center spot to start the year. I think this is a very underrated team in terms of talent level and kind of cohesive fit here.
Yeah, I mean, they just fit I think their roster really fits what they want to do. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I find it interesting that more people don't spend more time looking at players from the perspective of how they fit in a team's roster and a team's system. And like Kevin Keats is recruiting to a system. And I really respect that, because there are too many coaches who continue to over recruit bigs when they're not going to play bigs, or recruit too many guards when they want to play two bigs, and it just throws off their roster depth. Like Kevin Keats is like, we want a bunch of guys who can handle the ball. We want a bunch of 6'5" to 6'6" guys who can rebound and be do-it-all players, and we want one big man who can just run the floor. And he recruited that exactly. And so I think that'll generally provide success when a coach is on the same coach's roster is on the same page with the coach's head.
Absolutely. And Kevin Keats was such a great hire for that program. I saw UNC Wilmington play Duke in person at the NCAA tournament. They were very impressive in that game. Ultimately came up a little short. Brendan Ingram and Marshall Plumlee too were both excellent in that game for Duke. Next we have Louisville will not make the NCAA tournament. I know I'm super down on the Cardinals. Kevin, where do you have Louisville?
Yeah, I mean, I want to bet on Chris Mack, but it's just too big a bet for me that they make the tournament. I think they'll be more competitive than their roster suggests that they should be. But to me, it's just too much. I mean, the ACC is a really deep competitive league. I think they're going to have a pretty tough time winning enough. I think they probably win 8 ACC games, which is enough to like keep them in the general discussion for quite some time, but not enough for them to make the tournament.
Do you think that this is hot enough a take to even warrant being on this board, or do you think it's like such a minority has Louisville being good, or do you think that it's still worth kind of keeping track of this?
I mean, I think it's worth keeping track of. I think at the end we can always say like, yeah, I don't think that many people thought Louisville was making the tournament. I think smart people around college basketball don't think Louisville is making the tournament, but people who just kind of jump on names and like know coaches are like, oh yeah, Louisville will be great. Chris Mack, such a great coach, and like it's a great program, so they'll find a way. And like what it stunned me, like I could see them kind of doing it in Ohio State, where like the talent's there from a mediocre team. They bring it back, and with a new coach, just finds new energy. Like it wouldn't stun me if they make the tournament. I just don't think the roster suits itself for it right now.
Yeah, the roster seems a little patchworked, kind of thrown together a little bit, getting those 2 grad transfer guards to kind of fill some serious holes there. I think the Louisville program is in great shape, especially with their 2019 class. It's just, when people say this, I just trust team X or player X or coach X. I find that to be a really weak argument. I think you got to be, I trust Chris Mack, and I think Jordan Nwora is going to be a top 10 player in the ACC or something. Like you need to have some sort of prediction about the player as well. Like it can't just be the coach's genius. Like players are going to have to step forward. Teams who continually get this, I'll just always bet on Team X, like a Wisconsin. I mean, they've had guys over the years. Frank Kaminsky's probably the best example. Goes from like 2 points a game to like 18 points a game. If you're going to kind of bet on a team by just saying that they're always good, you got to have that kind of secondary portion, at least for me, to find the argument legitimate and to give you credit at the end of the year. If you just say, I think Villanova is going to be good because they're always good, and then they are good, and then you pat yourself on the back, I don't think that you deserve any credit. But if you say, I think Villanova is going to be good because they're always good, and Eric Paschall is going to be the Big East Player of the Year, and we look up and Eric Paschall is the Big East Player of the Year, then I think you deserve all the credit in the world.
Jimmy's and Joe's over X's and O's, as they say. Let's move it on to Austin Wiley, averaging a double-double and making the SEC first team. That is a take I am not going to get behind, Brad. I am sorry.
Yeah, but I think I wanted to kind of diversify the takes a little bit so they weren't just, Team X makes it versus not make it. I think Austin Wiley is significantly underrated nationally. He's just a monster on the glass, very mobile, very athletic big man, very powerful. I think he could have a really big season. In terms of SEC first team, I'm kind of hedging a little bit because the SEC first team has like 7 guys on it, so it's not like a true top 5 player. But I think being a top 7 player in the conferences is fairly realistic.
Yeah, I mean it's not crazy. I just don't know that the usage will be high enough. I think they're going to run through their guards again, so I think that hurts as much as anything. So to me, I don't think that. I think that's too strong. Double and first teamer. I could see I think he's like a 12-7 guy and makes the third team.
It's also very fair. Moving on, we have West Virginia finishes outside the top 25. This is one I've been. This has been a take that I've been sitting on for a while here. Kind of mentioned it briefly during our Big 12 preview. But Kevin, where do you have the Mountaineers finishing this year?
Well, I had them in my preseason top 25, and then I saw they lost to Penn State. Biggest thing I took away from that game, let me try to pull up the box score real quick. I believe
no James Bolden and then no Mike Watkins for Penn State.
Yeah, so that does kind of impact things a little bit. But the thing that I was really surprised by, I believe Chase Harlett started for West Virginia.
I didn't get to see the box score, but
yeah, Chase Harlett started and scored 10 points over Brandon Napper.
I know that West Virginia fans must be super shocked by that because they love Brandon Napper and they hate Chase Harler. Harler's a guy who was in the rotation briefly last year. I think Huggins likes him as like a kind of energy glue guy, like 10-minute a game guy, but the fan base certainly does not like him. I've seen a lot of diverging opinions between West Virginia players among their fans, but one constant was Chase Harler is no good.
Harler played 34 minutes in this game, 10 points, 3 assists, no turnovers, 3 steals. That's fine. I just didn't even expect him to be in the rotation, so that was a pretty big surprise. Napper had 11 points on made a 3, 4 of 6 shooting in 17 minutes, but turned it over 3 times. Issa Ahmad led the way with 25 and 7. Sagaba Konate had 15 and 7 and 3 blocks in 26 minutes. For Penn State, 20 and 11 for Lamar Stevens, 23 and 5 for freshman Miles Dredd, as well as 15 for freshman Rasir Bolton for Penn State.
Yeah, if Penn State's going to be good, they need a lot of these freshmen that they added to take a major step forward. I know Myrion Jones is another guy who I think 24/7 has rated extremely higher than everyone else. So I mean, maybe they're onto something there. Maybe some of these Penn State freshmen, especially at the guard positions, can make up for the losses of Shep Garner and Tony Carp.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say they finish in the top 25. Still, I think I'll stay on that train despite losing to Penn State. It's a charity game. They were missing guys to me. I mean, Bolden's very important to this team, but I will say I'm concerned that they gave up 84 points.
I think a lot of people take for granted. Gary Parrish is my favorite, college basketball analyst, writer, whatever the title is, and he was bringing up this point on the podcast repeatedly that since Bob Huggins has gone to Press Virginia, which has been 4 years, they've been amazing. I don't remember like the exact kind of cutoff that they finished in top 20, whatever. But that is a very convenient stat because it coincides with Javon Carter's time on the team. And don't you think, I mean, the guy who's the perfect fit for this high pressure offense, he leaves and you don't think it's going to be any different? Like, it just seems like that's one of those convenient stats that, we talked about this a lot around the NCAA tournament last year, but those things just drive me crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, I guess I hadn't really realized that Javon Carter's tenure there was the entirety of Press Virginia. That's pretty wild.
And him and Daxter Miles both 4-year starters, which is very rare, and also kind of, I think people are underestimating the impact of losing guys who have played that many important minutes.
Yeah, it's not crazy. I don't think it's at all crazy to keep him out of the top 25. Let's move it on. Ryder wins at least 28 games this season, postseason included. This is a really interesting one. I am a big Ryder guy. I think Ryder's going to be really good this year. I'm going to say under on that number, though, and I'll tell you why. So they won 22 games last year, and they won a lot of close games. They beat George Washington by 2, UC Irvine by 8. They beat Wagner in overtime by 6, Penn State by 1. They had a 6-point win in Manhattan, not exactly a powerhouse. 4-point win at St. Peter's, 3 versus Marist, 2 versus Fairfield, 3 versus St. Peter's, all in a row. I mean, they played a ton of close games last year. They won by 1 over Canisius at one point, 110-101 against Iona to end the regular season. I think that combined with their struggles in the postseason of the past, I'm going to say under here. I think they win 20-plus games. I think they win the MAC regular season, but I don't know if they get to 25, and I don't expect them to win an NCAA tournament game. So without getting to 25 in the regular season, it becomes really tough to get to over 28 wins because they need 3 in the MAC tournament.
So this is kind of how I broke it down. So conference, they're the clear favorites. I think 18-2 could be realistic. I'm pretty sure that the Metro plays a 20-game schedule.
They played 18 last year. I think they switched back though this season. Let me check really quick for us just to ensure. MAC.
They only have 11 non-conference games.
MAC basketball. I think they did switch back this year. It was either this year or last year that they switched back.
I mean,
it returns to the 20-team schedule this year. Everyone plays it. Or no, next year they play everybody twice. This year is still, I believe, 18.
Okay, well, I may have miscounted, so maybe 28 is a little high. But in my head, it was 18-2, which will now, I guess, be 16-2. And then in their 11 non-conference games, which I don't know if they have a in-season tournament. I didn't think so.
They do. They're playing in the Las Vegas Classic, which is 2 road games, and then they play 2. It's not like one that adds games to schedule though. It's 2 games on the road against bigger programs, and they play 2 in Vegas against Northern Colorado and either SIUE or Cal State Northridge.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, that's not a big difference there. So that would be 12 non-conference games. But so they have at West Virginia, at Central Florida. Those are the 2 that they're not going to be favored at, and then they have a bunch of other road games that are going to be difficult. It's where it kind of gets a little tricky. At VCU should be a toss-up. At Hofstra could be a difficult game, and then at Washington State, I mean that's a Power 6 program. But if they can get those 3 wins, I think that sets them up really well because I would put them at 10-2 in the non-conference, plus 16-2 in conference. Puts them at 26-4, which means that they just have to get to the conference championship game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would bet on them slipping up a couple more times than that. But, I mean, they have the talent. They should be favored to win that number of games. I will say that.
So how about if we can move it to 27.5, I'll take the over.
Okay, let's do it. That's fine. And then with that said, the next option, San Diego State finishes within 2 games of first place in the Mountain West Conference. 2 games. I think I'll take that. I think they do finish within there. I think, I mean, I don't think I think San Diego State. I mean, what's the number you're thinking for Nevada? I think Nevada goes 16-2, which means San Diego State would have to go 14-4, or like 13-5 if Nevada goes 15-3.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I was looking about. Pretty much how I was looking at this, where I've seen time and time again people talking about how Nevada's going to run away with the Mountain West. Gary Parrish in Norlander on their podcast saying something like, once a Nevada could end up being number one because they have like no losable games the rest of the way, and I think that they're severely underestimating these kind of. San Diego State's clearly the second best team in the Mountain West. Probably like a top 60 team, and then the rest of the teams are probably in like that 100 to 150 range. New Mexico had that unfortunate Jaquan Lyle injury. A lot of people, I've seen some optimism surrounding Fresno State, a little bit around UNLV. Some people really like Colorado State. So I think that there are more opportunities to slip up than most people are giving Nevada credit for. I think San Diego State is certainly good enough that they could, maybe take one game from Nevada, which could put them, a game or two behind the Wolfpack.
Yeah, I would tend to agree there. Oregon finishes outside the top 20. I'm all in on Oregon. I'm diving all in. I think they're a top 15, possibly top 10 team. I just love the talent. I think Dana Ullman's going to do a really good job with this group. Plus, Bol hit a fadeaway three. So, I mean, the world went nuts when he did that, which was so dumb because like anyone who's watched him in high school knows that he can do that. But it's just like, ooh, he did it in a D2 exhibition. Watch out for Bol. But I think they're top. I think they're definitely a top 20 team.
Yeah, so I'm a little lower on Oregon. I have them 24th. So I'm going to take them finishing outside the top 20. And in terms of Bol, it is very funny because after their secret scrimmage, he had like 2 rebounds in 23 minutes. And I saw a bunch of people talking about how concerning that was. And then the next game he hits like a fadeaway 3, and all of a sudden, Bol is this phenom. So I thought that was an interesting contrast there. And then in terms of Oregon, why I'm down on them, I'm just a little down on their kind of overall roster. I think Bol is more prospect than a player. I know we talked about this a lot in the Pac-12 preview, but a lot of these, even top 5 rated big men in terms of recruits don't impact winning as much as people think, and they're not as good college players, even when they succeed immensely in the professional ranks. I mean, guys like Andre Drummond, Steven Adams, Miles Turner, Cameron Ridley, Isaiah Austin. There are tons of Chris Walker too. I mean, there are tons of examples of these highly ranked centers kind of having steeper learning curves than people expect.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bol will be impactful by blocking shots and hitting threes, but I don't think he's going to be I don't think he's going to be a massive scorer. I would almost compare him a little bit to, I mean, this is like a kind of extreme comparison, but it's just kind of on my mind because I was doing Northwestern basketball, was like Pete Nance. Like, I don't think Pete Nance is going to score 12 points a game for Northwestern, or like even probably 10, but he's going to be a majorly impactful player because of his defense, because he's going to be a weak side rim protector and possibly get steals. He's going to shoot threes. He's going to, he's like a 4 or 5 man who could step out and shoot jumpers, defend multiple positions, block shots. Like, that's an incredibly valuable player. If Bol can do that, which I think he can, he's a very impactful player, unlike most big men who are, I think a lot of the big men you kind of touched on are either just like absurdly freak bouncy guys, or they're like just back to the basket post players. Whereas Bol, I think, has a different element to his game because he can shoot and because he's going to be a good rim protector.
Well, I think he's pretty similar to Isaiah Austin and Miles Turner a little bit too.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's move it on. This is the take that you dropped on your AAC preview that I was just stunned to hear. And I thought about it more, and I was like, the AAC is not that good, but I just do not see Temple as a top 4 team. I think if you do, you're really betting on Devondre Perry and JP Mormon to step up pretty big, because I mean, Quentin Rose is pretty darn good basketball player. Shiz Alston can play. They bring back Alani Moore, but I just don't think there's the depth. I think this is kind of a weird year for them with Fran Dunphy going out. Yeah, I can't join you with this one, Brad.
Yeah, so maybe I'm not putting enough stock into this coaching situation, which is very strange. I haven't seen really anything truly like it. With a guy who could have been fired in Fran Dunphy, and then they give it to like his lead assistant, who's a former Temple legend, right? So certainly a weird scenario, but I'm a big Quentin Rose guy. You mentioned Shiz Alston too. He's another excellent player, and I think a lot of these kind of complementary pieces can take a step forward. And one complimentary guy that I really like is Quentin Jackson. I know we talked about this earlier on the AAC preview. He's a guy who had a lot of high major interest, like a legitimate high major interest, and then kind of chose to go to Charlotte, which was like his hometown school. Didn't really work out, and he went to the JUCO ranks. But he's like a big athletic point guard. He doesn't shoot it, but I think if they go Jackson, Rose, Alston, that's three versatile backcourt players who can handle the ball, who can create. I think that's a really interesting look, kind of similar to what Houston could do. When they play Dejan Jarreau, they have Nate Hinton, they have Corey Davis, Galen Robinson. They have a potential to play a lot of different ball handlers. I think that's very interesting. Then you mentioned Perry and Mormon, who I think are both very good fits on the roster, guys who can play that 3-4 spot. And I think that both could start to show a little more production in year two.
Yeah, I mean, I think the saving grace for this pick is just the AAC is not that good. I know Jeff Goodman said on Tony Patel's podcast, he was like, UConn, if it all breaks right, could win the whole thing. He doesn't think it will because he thinks there's kind of chemistry issues. Like Jalen Adams already gets suspended, Sidney Wilson as well. But like UConn could just go flat out win the thing. I think the league's wide open. I think Temple could sneak into the top four, at least into a tie. So it's definitely not crazy. Let's move on. Gonzaga finishes outside the top 5. Oof. It's tough because if they lose games, especially early in the season without Tilly, it might be tough. Yeah. I mean, you feel like they either finish top 2 or like 8 through 10. So I think they're probably going to finish in the top 5.
I'll go out on a limb and just say no. I feel like this is a team that is being ranked like they're a clear top tier team. And I don't really see what differentiates them from like the second tier of like your Tennessees, your UNC. I think that Gonzaga is just as good as those teams. And while I have Gonzaga, I think right now I have number 6 in my personal rankings, which is so much lower than what everyone else has, but still means that they're like a 2 seed. I think Gonzaga is going to be an excellent team, but I think while I would not be surprised at all if they ended up 1 through 5, I think that the chance that they finish outside the top 5 is significantly higher than people are giving it credit for. That's why I'll go with yes, they finish outside the top 5.
All right. Creighton's leading scorer, I'm going to go with Tyshawn Alexander. I'm pretty excited about him. I think he's going to score a good amount. I think they're gonna lean on him to go get buckets more than they're gonna lean on Mitch Ballack. I think he's gonna become that go-to scorer for this team.
Okay, so this is an interesting one because Creighton was a team last year who relied a lot, and more than people even realized how much they relied offensively on Kyrie Thomas and Marcus Foster. They're complementary players. Were very complimentary. They didn't do a lot of creating. They did a lot of standing around. I think Ballack was kind of the guy who was the most aggressive out of those complementary players. He should have, all the minutes in the world available. So should Alexander. But I think Ballack, with the aggressiveness in the shooting that he showed last year, I think he could really have a breakthrough season, average 14, 15 points a game.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Ballack's a reasonable take. I just think they're going to rely more on Alexander than Ballack. It's just my gut feel. Next one we got to get to, BYU finishes sub 75 in KenPom. So is that sub 75 is in a top 75 team or is in 75 to 353?
I was thinking the latter, 75 to 350, whatever.
Well, say they are not in the top 75 because they were 73rd last year. They get Nick Emery back. They lose Elijah Bryant. I was doing my WCC preview and then it got deleted, so I had to write it again, which I'm quite annoyed about. But Elijah Bryant last year was a 18-6-2 guy who nearly was a 50-40-90 guy. Like, he was super good. And I don't think that Nick Emery comes kind of close to replacing that. I think this is like an 80-100 Ken Pom team.
I agree 100%. I've seen this team in people's NCAA tournaments as like an at-large. I think that's absolutely absurd. And, they haven't really been close for the past few years. They've been killed by early entry almost as much as like Wake Forest. I mean, the thing with them is their guys haven't been getting drafted, but they're so old. Like an Eric Mika, he's a guy who was never going to really be an NBA player, but after his 2 years in college, it was really 4 years because he had the 2-year Mormon mission. Didn't make a lot of sense for him to continue playing and stuff like that. For a program like BYU or a program like Wake Forest, you just can't recover from that. And then you put it perfectly. Elijah Bryant, a lot better than people realize. Nick Emery's good, but it's not enough to certainly move them up at all. So I also have them sub 75.
All right, let's move on then. Boston College finishes sub 100. I'm assuming in Ken Pom as well. Let's see what they did last year, just so I have a data point here. My gut they were 77 in Ken Pom last year. I think they're a top 100 Ken Pom team. I think Boston College will be pretty good this year. I think they're an NIT team. I think Winston Tabb's going to be impressive. Kai Bowman's really good. Jarris Hamilton will help. Popovich. Stephen Mitchell can defend multiple positions. Yeah, if it was 75, I would say no. 100, I'll take the Boston College Eagles.
I have Boston College sub 100, and I think this was another team that was super reliant on their two big guns in Kai Bowman and Jerome Robinson. Winston Tabbs, all accounts is a very promising player, is going to be an impact guy immediately for Boston College. But I just think losing such a talented player like Jerome Robinson and not replacing him with a comparable player. I mean, Jarris Hamilton's going to be very good. He's a top 75 recruit. But, typically top 75 recruits don't come in and perform to the level that Jerome Robinson did last year, averaging 20-something points a game, lottery pick, was a amazing scorer. I think that Boston College, is going to take a pretty significant step back this year and kind of fall back to where they were the previous few years in that kind of 100 to 150 range.
And if so, do you think Jim Christian gets the boot?
No, because, I mean, if Kai Bowman leaves, then he probably should because their momentum is gone. But, I mean, you would bring back almost the same team for next year with one of the best players in the ACC in Kai Bowman. I think you lose Jordan Chapman, but then, Winston Tabb steps in. This is a team, they should have been utilizing the transfer market, so much more. I think that one possible, reason that, people may say that they haven't been using transfers because of academics. BC's an excellent academic school, but they've taken a ton of grad transfers. So I don't think that's
They took Deontay Hawkins. So
yeah,
given what has been said about Deontay Hawkins, like multiple arrests, like bad grades, like they took him. And look, Northwestern takes grad transfers. Northwestern takes regular transfers. Like other high, like elite, high major schools in the high academic range take transfers. I don't think that's a reason why they're not taking transfers. I think more of a Jim Christian philosophy.
Well, then he's not long for this world.
Probably not. Let's move it on. St. Louis is an at-large caliber team. That's a no from me. Is it a no from me? See, I really like St. Louis, this roster. I just wish it wasn't coached by Travis Ford. I'm going to go no. They're not an at-large team.
I'm going to go yes. I have them, I think, 42nd, which would, so I have them as the lone A10 team, but being 42nd, they would get an at-large if they lost the A10 tournament. I just love this team's talent. I've always liked Son French and Jordan Goodwin, who were both freshmen last year, and then they return Javon Bess, who is, I believe, their leading scorer on the wing, former Michigan State transfer. Two big additions of Cartare Gordon and Tremaine Isabel at the point. Super talented starting five, especially for the Atlantic 10. I think that they will be good enough despite Travis Ford's reputation of kind of not being the greatest coach. And then in terms of just how to quantify this, I was thinking that we would use the NCAA Tournament seed list. So if they are on the S curve in a spot where they would have gotten in at large had they not won their conference tournament, I think that would be the determining factor.
That's fair. I'll take that one. Next one, Seton Hall. Kevin's call on the cutoff. I'll say Seton Hall is not a top 65 team. Kind of a strange number, but 65 feels like a pretty reasonable one.
That's right. That's right around where I have them. I'll go yes.
Yeah, okay, they're not for me. They're not for me. I'm all off the Seton Hall bandwagon.
I mean, your opinion on Seton Hall is completely correlated with your opinion on Quincy McKnight and Torian Thompson. McKnight, very inefficient at Sacred Heart. Thompson was not very good at Syracuse, but he's very talented. He has a lot of bad habits, kind of a bad floor game. I think 65 is close enough where I'll take it. Big Miles Powell guy, big Miles Kale guy. But I'm not super high on Torian Thompson, which a lot of people seem to be.
Yeah. But like we said, it's all about your opinion of McKnight and Torian Thompson. Arizona State makes the NCAA tournament. Ooh. I'm starting to really come around to this team. I just worry that a team built around guards and switches to forwards and kind of combo wings, that could either work really well or really poorly. I'll say plus Bobby Hurley kind of soured on me during that stretch last year. It's almost tough. Like once you see a team play at their best, like if you had told me last year before the season, Arizona State pulls some big upsets, winds up making the tournament, I'd be like, Bobby Hurley did a great job with this team. Like outstanding coach, like on the rise, his program's great. But because you showed me this can be an elite team and then you were legit trash down the stretch, for whatever reason, it really leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So it's tough for me. I think I'll go on a limb here and say they do make the tournament.
I am in agreement with you. I think Arizona State's guards are better than people are giving credit for. I know a lot of NBA draft guys like Lugens Dort, who's probably going to be their starting two guard or like their sixth man. And then I think Remy Martin is going to take a nice step forward. He's a guy who was their sixth man last year. I think he'll really emerge as a solid point guard. And then Rob Edwards, the Cleveland State transfer. I think the three of them, while the backcourt is not super deep, I think they have three nice options there for two players. And then they have, as you mentioned, a much improved front court with Tayshaun Cherry, who's a top 25 recruit, and Zylan Cheatham, who's a great energy big man who I was very high on during his time at San Diego State. Not sure how great of a fit he is next to Romello White, but I think he's an interesting piece for them.
Yeah, totally agree. I think Cheatham's going to be a really interesting player. I'm excited to see Tayshaun Cherry there as well.
Okay, so next was a kind of an interesting one that I thought of. So I said outside of Nebraska's Big Four, which is Copeland, Roby, Watson, and Palmer, their remaining six players average less than 20 points per game combined.
That's really interesting. I think Thomas Allen gets them like 7. It's like this Brady Hyman, Nana Kenton, Amir Harris. Does that group get you 13? I'll say under. I'll bet the under.
I'm going to agree with that. Because I agree with your assessment on Thomas Allen. I think Amir Harris is going to play a lot. He's not really a scorer though, so I mean he could be legitimately good and average like 3 points a game. It's going to come down to Nana Kenton, I think, in terms of where you kind of see this bench unit. I think even though maybe this is not a hot take, I think we can both say under and keep on the board as like an interesting thing to track.
Yeah, Yeah, I would say it's going to be very pretty. And the question is, how much do you think it directly correlates with the success of this team?
I think
you think they have to score? I think they have enough dudes who can get a bucket. It's just like, can they give you good minutes?
Yeah, that's true. I think or at least I was kind of using the scoring to kind of illustrate how bad their bench was. But I mentioned with Amir Harris. I mean, he could play 20 minutes a game, average like 3 points a game, and be like an Evan Taylor type. Be very good for them. So I think that as long as they're playing good floor games and good complementary pieces around their big four, they should be fine.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Let's move it on. St. John's top 3 in the Big East. I was all ready to jump on this bandwagon, and then they lose to Rhode Island. They struggle with Maryville. I'm going to say no. It's just really tough for me to bet on Chris Mullin. I picked them third, but if I was betting, that's tough. I'm going to say they finished below the top 3.
I'm too deep into St. John's right now to go elsewhere. And no matter what the scrimmage and exhibition results, I'm fully committed. I think that I had them 25th in my top 25, and I think that they will finish top 3 in the Big East. I think that they have their own kind of top 4, and then they have a nice group of complementary players with Figueroa, Kita, and Mikey Dixon, which I think elevates them to a solid top 25 team.
Yeah, I mean, if I like the roster, I really do. It's tough for me. It's tough for me. I don't love the depth. I don't love the coaching. Yeah,
it's all about the cohesion. Like,
it's really
tough. If this top 7 can play cohesively and kind of maximize their own talents, then this is a good team. But if the fit's not there and it's just like a group of talented guys with no cohesion, then they could easily fall to 6 or 7.
Next one up, Virginia wins the ACC regular season. I've touched on this a bunch. Yeah, I think they do. I don't even know. I don't even know if this should be debated.
I think a lot of people are going to have Duke. And I've seen was that with you? Someone came at you saying that UVA is too high because they lost to UMBC.
Yes, it was the worst. That guy, I lost like half my brain cells in that conversation. Like, don't remind me of it, please.
All right, so why don't we take this one off the board? I think it's not hot enough.
All right, why not? Rhode Island finishes top 4 in the A10. Ooh. I'm not ready to make that jump yet. I think they'd probably finish in the 6 to 8 range. I just think it's so tough losing the amount of guys they lose. I think the talent's pretty good. The A10 will beat itself up a little bit. I think they're pretty young. Guys, like I guess to me it really depends on your opinion of Jeff Dowden. Like, if you think he can take over games, then I think top 4 is not at all crazy. I'm not sure he's there yet.
Yeah, I think URI is going to finish in the top 4. They need a lot from their freshmen, and they're not guys who are ranked in a position where you can necessarily expect big things from right away. But they have a very solid top 3 of Fats Russell, Jeff Dowden, and Cyril Langevin. Especially Jeff Dowden, he's an excellent player. Great, kind of floor general type of point guard. He's going to have to take a more active role in the scoring, which I think he will. I think him and Fats Russell make one of, if not the best backcourts in the A10, and I think that URI will finish in the top 4, but not really be close to the NCAA tournament.
Do you think the real question, though, does your Providence fan card get revoked for saying Rhode Island is the top 4 team in the conference?
Depends on the faction of PC fan that you talk to. Because us reasonable folks say better URI is better for us. We're kind of interconnected. We play each other every year. It's a key non-conference game, and the more general basketball interest in the state, the better. And you have people that just want URI to, lose their opener to Bryant.
Yeah, that's generally how Siena fans are with UAlbany. I generally lean towards especially with Siena and UAlbany, it's like mid-majors in the area winning is good for college basketball. Like, it's good for the area. Like, I guess it's always different, like with the big brother complex. Like if Providence thinks they're big brother in the state, I could see why you wouldn't want like the little brother who's making a move like to be good, especially if you were like if Providence was down right now, it'd be a little harder to root for Rhode Island to be good. Like when Sienna's bad and Albany's good, it's tough. It's like because you're worried that they like kind of take over in the state, and that's always tough. But if you're winning, it's okay if the other team wins. That's my book.
I mean, Providence has won 7 of the last 8 games against URI, so that's a big trump card, especially before this past year when it was 7 for 7. I mean, you could make a URI fan's head explode, by just saying, URI fan could be like, well, we're a better team this year when we go out. Well, we've won 7-7, and the steam would come out of their ears.
Let's move it on. Mac McClung averages less than 5 a game. I think he gets more minutes than that, so I think he scores more than 5 a game. I don't think it's that much more. I think he's like a 6 to 7 a game guy, maybe at a low efficiency.
Yeah, I just figured probably gonna be like the 8th man, backup point guard. They have a lot of I think guys ahead of him on the scoring hierarchy. I think averaging like 4.4 points a game wouldn't signify a bad season for Mac McClung. As a sub 150 ranked freshman who's like the backup point guard, I think that's that would be a strong start to his career at Georgetown. But I think that this is hot enough based on the national perception, at least the Georgetown fan perception, that it's worth having on there. I'll go with no for this.
Yeah, and I guess I would also much rather I would much rather Mac McClung, average 4.4 points a game, but like take care of the ball, play smart basketball, and like contribute to winning, than average like 7 points a game, just chucking shots at 35%. Like I don't know how valuable that is. So I think it's always fair, and that's why points per game doesn't always kind of signify your ability to play.
No, definitely.
Let's move it on. Vanderbilt to the NIT. This one, I don't even know how hot it is, Brad. I mean, I think it's tough whenever you're 2 top recruits like they do. I'll have them in the field, but I think they're pretty much a bubble team.
Yeah, I have them as my first team out. I've seen this go either way. I think more so recently I've seen Vanderbilt in the NIT, whereas earlier in the offseason, I think they were seen as more of like a lock for the NCAA tournament. They have Shimmy Shitu, Darius Garland, Saban Lee. But if you think that this isn't hot enough, I don't think this is our hottest take, by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm willing to eliminate it, or
I'm happy to leave it just because we're in between. I'm happy to leave it. You take no, I take yes, yeah. All right, Jordan Tucker averages less than 5 points per game. Okay, that's a really low number, Brad. I don't know why did you set it there? Because I mean, I could see less than 8. But less than 5. I mean, you're talking about him barely being a rotation player.
Well, I think, 5 points a game is probably more than most 8th men average, right? I mean, that's kind of where I was going. Where you have your starters and Thompson, Baldwin, Jorgensen, McDermott, and Fowler, and I think Henry Badley is the clear 6th man, and I think Joey Brunk is going to be the clear 7th man. Depending on how good Fowler is, I mean, that's probably going to be a relatively even split. So then I think that puts Tucker as the 8th man. And I think coming on mid-year is always super difficult. I mean, we saw recently with Harry Frawling, who's a very talented player, who just, couldn't really adapt, like coming in mid-year. I know with Providence many years ago, Sadiki Johnson was a guy that the fan base was super excited about, myself definitely included. He came in mid-year and just couldn't hack it. I mean, he was out after like 5 or 6 games. He was just like a train wreck. But I think it's more difficult than people realize to join the team mid-year, and kind of jump in and play a big role. So I think Tucker's probably the 8th man, and I think 4 or 5 points a game is what a typical 8th man averages.
Yeah, I can't join you on this one, Brad. I'm sorry. Let's go on. Ayad Asunmu. I mean, I think Jordan Tucker starts. I think that's kind of my thing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Ayad Asunmu, sleeper one and done. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I don't think he has strong ties to college, and I think he's going to score a lot of points on a bad team, and it's a weak draft. So, I mean, yeah, I could see him going one and done. I don't know if I'd bet on it. Yeah, you know what? I'll jump in with you. He's one and done.
What I kind of meant more about this question, I didn't really articulate it very well, was like we would each take a sleeper one and done. And like that was mine.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you talk about why you think Ayodele could be a number one?
Yeah, sorry for springing
sleeper
that
one and done. Give me
I
1
didn't
second to
write
think.
that very well.
All right.
But basically, kind of stems back to me watching him at the U18s, and while I came away down on Quentin Grimes, two guys that I emerged, being very high on are Kobe White and Ayodele, and I've seen more love for Kobe White recently as a potential one and done, and as UNC starting point guard and as a impact player immediately. And I think Dosunmu, he cannot shoot at all. I think the best comparison for him, might be like a Frank Ntilikina, where he's super long. He can play multiple positions. He can play point guard. Probably play some 3-2, at least guard some threes with his length. He's an elite defender who has some point guard skill. I think that makes him an easy kind of fit. I think the thing with Frank Ntilikina that a lot of people are down on was how high he got drafted, and a lot of people were very high on guys like Dennis Smith and obviously Donovan Mitchell, who have much brighter futures. But Ntilikina is going to be a starter. He's going to be a kind of defensive menace, and I think Dosunmu could kind of take over a similar role. His shooting is very concerning, but I think a lot of these positive attributes kind of outweigh that.
Okay, so my sleeper is Brandon Williams at Arizona. I think he's going to have the ball in his hands quite a bit, and he's going to score a fair amount based on their 2 exhibitions. They've kind of played him on and off the ball. They bring in Nico Mannion next year. They bring in Josh Green, so 2 big-time guards who can score the ball and will want the ball in their hands. I could see Brandon Williams saying, I don't want to play in kind of I don't want to play in that role, leave early, maybe sneak into the late first, early second if he has a big year at Zona.
I like that. That's a really nice sleeper in that kind of 40 to 50 range because there are guys in that range who go one and done every year. I mean, Zach LaVine was in that range. I think DeJounte Murray was in that range. I think Marcus Chris was even a little lower too.
Yeah, no, I really wasn't I couldn't think of one, and so I just literally went to the recruiting rankings like who could I see doing this, and I was like Brandon Williams, that's perfect. Boom. All right, Rutgers finishes worse in KenPom than last year, so that's lower than 130. Ooh. No, Rutgers is better than last year. Believe in Steve.
Oops, I mixed it up there. I'm going with they finished lower than 130.
So better.
No, worse. You're going with better.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, better than 130 and worse than 130. We'll say.
Okay.
I was confusing myself. But I mean, they lose Corey Sanders. They lose Deshaun Freeman. I think that the overall talent level's down. And I mean, we were talking about this a few podcasts ago. But their best player is Geo Baker, who's a nice player. I think when he's like a senior, he'll be a legitimate top option on a Big Ten team. But for now, I think that this team is lacking top end talent.
Yeah, I mean, I think Geo Baker's gonna be really good. I think they're a little deeper. I think Peter Kiss is gonna be really good. I think they'll be really good on defense. Yeah, I think they're not top 100, but I think they're between 110 and 130. So I mean, it's small margins, but I'll take that. Davidson finishes outside the top 4 in the Big Ten. I can jump in on this. I think Kellen Grady's going to be good. And Axel Goodmanson's going to be fine. Luke Frampton is really key to this team. I think if Luke Frampton is as advertised, it could be really good. If not, it's a mediocre A10 team with a really good player.
So do you have them in the top 4 of the A10 or no?
No.
Okay, so do I. So we're in agreement here. A lot of people have Davidson approaching at large caliber, but I don't see it. I think that's really doing a slight to Peyton Aldridge and just how good he was. I mean, you mentioned the talent outside of those 2 guards is very minimal on paper. They need a lot of guys to take a major step forward, and I think the A10's kind of middle of the pack is a lot better than it was last year. So I think Davidson will be worse than last year. Therefore, with the league getting better, I think they'll be outside the top 4.
Buffalo is an at-large caliber team, so will we use the same metric as we did for St. Louis as our judgment? Okay. I don't think they build the resume, so I'll say no. I think they're an at-large level team. I think they're good enough. I think you'll put on the tape and say Buffalo's just as good. I just don't think they'll build the resume.
So I have Buffalo 46th, which means that they won the MAC, but if they lost the tournament, that would put them as my third to last team in. Just Arizona and Butler being the only at-larges who would be lower on my seed list than Buffalo. So I think that they would get in. Thin margin for error for these teams. You can't really mess up very much at all in conference. But opening night or opening week rather, on Friday night, they have a great opportunity. Playing a West Virginia team that could, maybe have some early season growing pains, replacing their entire backcourt. So that could be a nice win that looks a lot better as the season progresses.
It would be certainly a quadrant run. I think even at worst case, West Virginia will be a top 75 team on the road. So yeah, it's a quadrant one win. They open with St. Francis, Pennsylvania on Tuesday, and I don't think people should sleep on that game. It's gonna be a really fun one. St. Francis is really good, really good guards. Buffalo's got really good guards. It's gonna be a fun game.
Yeah, if that wasn't working, I would totally watch that game.
If you're not watching at work, what are you doing? If you don't watch the Eastern Michigan game at 10 a.m. on opening day every year, what are you doing with your life?
Gotta watch Rob Murphy's 2-3 zone.
Ugh, nothing better.
They still have James Thompson, right?
Yes, indeed. He's going to wind up in his career a 2,000-point scorer and top 10 all time in the NCAA in rebounding, and I don't think anyone in the country knows who he is.
No, he's super overlooked even for that type of player,
Well, I mean, in fairness, he hasn't improved. His entire career, he has been the exact same player. 14 points, 10 rebounds, similar shooting percentages. Go look at his sports reference page. It is actually the funniest thing ever. The dude has literally not changed who he is. He was just a top 200 recruit who had bad grades or whatever, wound up at Eastern Michigan and just beast, but doesn't improve at all. It's kind of disappointing, but also incredible to watch at the same time.
All right, let's see. Yeah, we got 15-16, 14.8 points a game, 10.6 rebounds. The next year, 14.8 points a game, 11.2 rebounds. The next year, 14.5 points a game, 11.2 rebounds.
Same guy. Same exact player. All right, Loyola not at large caliber. I think they will be at large caliber. I think they're good enough team, and they'll have a better chance to build a resume in the Missouri Valley than they will in the MAC.
Yeah, I think that this Loyola team is being significantly overrated. I think that especially the losses of Dante Ingram and Andre Jackson kind of changed their whole core competency, where one great advantage that they had was they could go big with Krutwig, and then they really excelled with Jackson as that small ball five. Him and Ingram off in the front court, I think that kind of eliminates that nice wrinkle that they had. And then wasn't Ben Richardson the defensive player of the year too?
He was really good on defense. I don't know if he won player of the year, but he was really good.
Yeah, so I mean, you lose a starting guard there who's an excellent defender. I like Lucas Williamson. He played well in the NCAA tournament. But I think that the defense could take a step back, especially not being able to survive defensively while playing small with Jackson Ingram there.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Lucas Williamson is going to be really good. I think Uguak is going to be really good. Uguak, I just butchered his name, but he's really athletic, four-man. He's going to run the floor really well. I think he'll be good. Ohio State, top 5 in the Big Ten. I've been kind of championing this one, so I'll give you my reasoning. It's not just Chris Holtman can really coach. I think the roster is better. I think people don't realize that the roster overall is better than it was last year. They just don't have the star that they did. And this team went 15-3. I think they probably win 11 Big Ten games, which is probably enough for at least a tied top 5 spot, right? 11 out of 7, 11 out of 8, or they're up to 20 Big Ten games now this year. So I think we go 13-7 in the Big Ten, 12-8, which is probably top 5.
Yeah, I think that they'll be pretty close. I have them 7th in the conference, but in terms of nationally, so I have Nebraska 6th and Purdue 5th. and I have Nebraska at like 43rd nationally and Purdue like 39th. And then Ohio State is my second team out, which puts them at 50. So that's very close together. So the margin for error there is pretty slim in terms of 5th versus 7th. I'll go with no. I mean, I have them 7th, so I can't really say that I have them 5th.
All right. And finally, over under 2.5 mid-major at-large bids. So that's not including Gonzaga and Nevada. So let's kind of just toss some teams into the mix that could get it. Loyola, maybe Illinois State, San Diego State, Western Kentucky, Buffalo.
Are we counting A-10?
Yes.
Okay.
St. Louis, maybe George Mason, Harvard. Do we get 2.5 over or under?
So now, will it count if, like, I have St. Louis that they would get in if they lost the A-10 tournament, but if they win the A-10 tournament, can we still count St. Louis if they fall on the seed list?
So what you're saying is like teams that would have gotten at-large bids, but then they get the bid. They get a bid anyway because they win the conference tournament. I think the whole point is just counting at-large bids. So I would say no. Let's not count those.
Okay, so then I have 0.
Wow.
Right, because I have Western Kentucky at 34. But
you're saying because you're saying they're going to get in because they win the conference.
Yeah, so that means that they would have won Conference USA. I have St. Louis at 44, which means they won the A-10, and I have Buffalo at 46, which means they won the
right.
MAC.
But like what I'm like, I mean, obviously not all 3 of those teams are going to win their conferences. So like, how many teams do you think are like the best team in their conference, but will lose in the conference tournament and get in? I think probably 2, so I'll go under.
I'll have to go under then too, right?
I mean, like, it's not hard at all to see Loyola get a bid, Western Kentucky get a bid, San Diego State get a bid, all of Buffalo even could get a bid, like individually, a bunch of them. But it's hard to like St. Louis could get one, but it's hard to see all of them in just this day and age. So over 2.5. I think if it was 1.5, I'd bet the over. But yeah, I think 2 is probably the right number.
So why don't we move it to 1.5? You can take the over, I'll take the under.
All right, sounds good. Well, that actually finishes the season wagers. We have, I believe, 31 of them that we did. So very fun. Had a great time doing this. We're going to wrap this thing up by doing some picks for week 1. This is just games for Tuesday through Friday, given I'm figuring we'll probably podcast on Sunday, and the Saturday game slate is not very good given that there's a lot of college football. So I went with Tuesday through Friday. The games we're going to pick: Michigan State, Kansas, Florida State, Duke, Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Washington, Nevada, BYU, Ohio State, Cincinnati, Providence versus Wichita State, Washington at Auburn, Buffalo at West Virginia. And then we're each going to pick a bye game upset. And then we'll pick Siena at Providence against the spread, given the rooting interests.
And so I actually wrote an article earlier, top 15 games of opening week. All these games have, a couple hundred words on them. So if you're interested in more in depth, you can check that out. It is unfortunate though for Western Kentucky that like half their team is suspended. So that game has lost literally all of its juice, which would have been, one of the top games of opening week, certainly a must watch, I would say. But now, who knows if Deshaun Murray, Hollingsworth, and Josh Anderson are even going to play. And then we know.
I think Hollingsworth and Anderson are going to play and Murray won't.
I thought they all got caught with the marijuana.
Anderson got disorderly conduct for telling a police officer to F off when he was drunk dancing in front of a car. Hollingsworth and Murray got marijuana pops. Hollingsworth is only a first-time marijuana pop, so he got a 1 game, which I believe was served an exhibition. Murray suspended indefinitely. I could be wrong. It might be 3.
I thought like whenever they were like unspecified violation, 3-game suspension, I thought it was always marijuana. But
let me look on Hollingsworth, see if I get any. News. Hollingsworth. I'm picking Washington, but
me too. So
let's run through these picks real. Michigan State versus Kansas, opening night. I think Kansas wins this game. I think they cover whatever the spread is. I think Kansas is just going to score a ton of points on this bad Michigan State backcourt defensively.
Yeah, these are two teams I think are getting pushed a little too high. Now, Kansas is like this consensus number one team. I don't see them as that much better than your Duke, your Virginia, your Gonzaga, your Kentucky, even like Auburn. So I think Kansas wins this game as well. But I don't think that they're necessarily as a surefire number one team as a lot of people have them.
That's definitely fair. Florida at Florida State. I think Florida win this game. I think Florida State's at home, which is tough, but I'm really excited to see Nembhard. I think Florida's going to surprise some people in this game.
I also picked Florida with the upset, only because Phil Kofer is out for I think like a month, 2 months maybe, for Florida State. He's their second best player, probably second leading scorer from last year. Very important piece in the front court. I think Florida can kind of be the favorite in this game now that Florida State is down a key player.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. Duke and Kentucky, battle of two titans in college basketball. I think Kentucky's experience will shine through in this game. Just guys like PJ Washington who have been there. I think that matters. The point guard play is going to be interesting. That's the number one thing I'm going to watch. Like, I don't even care like what the score is. Like, who's going to play the fifth? Is going to be the fifth guy for Duke, and who's playing point guard for Kentucky. I think Kentucky wins this game though.
Yeah, based on the early box scores for Duke, it looks like Marcus Bolden is back in the starting lineup, and Javin Delorier has been moved to like a smaller role, which doesn't make a lot of sense on paper.
Bolden is bad. He's not good at basketball. Get off the bandwagon.
It is interesting though that both these teams are going to run out freshman point guards and be two of the best teams in the country while working these guys in. I think if I don't pick Duke here, I think we're going to have a lot of the same picks. So I'll pick Duke. I'm very high on Zion Williamson. I think he's a lot better and he has a lot more of a diverse skill set than people give him credit for.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch Zion in a game where they actually have the athleticism to challenge you. I mean, watching Zion play D2 teams, watching Zion play high school games, watching Zion play Canadian teams, like you didn't get anything out of it because he's just so much more athletic.
Yeah, Zion versus PJ Washington will be a nice matchup.
The NBA draft Twitter people will be they'll be like, I don't know how they're gonna like keep it in their pants watching that game.
Yeah.
Western Kentucky and Washington. Washington for me. I mean, just there's too much off the court stuff. It's in Seattle, across the country. I think Western Kentucky will push, but Washington play well in their secret exhibition games. They'll be really good in this game.
If Western Kentucky had their full roster, I would go out on the limb and pick the upset. But who knows who's even going to be in the lineup? So got to go Washington here.
Nevada versus BYU, also an opening night fixture. I'm worried I'll get lynched by the Nevada fan base if I pick BYU at Lawler. I think Nevada comes out ready to go. I think they find a way. I think they struggle early. They come back late and just keep the confidence early in the season.
Yeah, I have Nevada as well. I mean, we talked on BYU a lot, and we're not super high on them. Nevada's clearly the better team playing at home, right? So,
Ohio State at Cincinnati, opening Cincinnati's newly renovated arena. This is tough because a game like that is such a big kind of moment for a team at home. McCurran and all those guys ready to go. I think Ohio State's the better team, but I think Cincinnati wins on that night.
Yeah, so I have Cincinnati ahead of Ohio State in my rankings, but for some reason my gut is pulling me toward Ohio State for this game. I think Caleb Weston could have a big game against the new-look Cincinnati front court. Also think Ohio State has the advantage at the point guard spot with C.J. Jackson over Justin Jennifer. I think Cincinnati probably has the better wing with Jaron Cumberland, but maybe Ohio State can slow him down, throw Musa Jallo and Luther Muhammad at him. So I think Ohio State pulls off the road upset here.
There are literally no games of note on Thursday, the 8th. Ken Palm's most exciting game that day is Siena versus George Washington. Ew. I'll be at Northwestern versus New Orleans, officially opening Welsh Ryan. That'll be a fun one. Northwestern should win by 20. So we skip over that day altogether. Providence versus Wichita State at, the Veterans Classic in Annapolis, Brad?
Yeah.
I think I got to go Providence here. I think Wichita State hangs in this game more than people think. It's going to be a really interesting game to watch, but I think Providence is the better team. They're deeper. They're more athletic. I think they're just more experienced. I think that plays out here early in the season at least.
I think this game's going to be a rock fight. I mean, both teams working in new point guards, a lot of roster turnover, especially for Wichita State. Only really returns Marcus McDuffie from the rotation last year. Providence has a lot of kind of physical, athletic wings who are gonna take turns posting up. They have some good big men, low post players as well. So this could be an ugly game, but I have Providence winning.
Providence will need a win after an 0-1 start, thanks to a loss to the Siena Saints. So got to go with the Friars here. Moving on, Washington at Auburn. Always tough to bet on a team flying cross country, but I'm going to jump all in. Washington wins this game on the road on a Friday night on the Plains.
I have Auburn. I think that Auburn's talent is just a little deeper and a little better. I think Washington has this nice Noah Dickerson, Jalen Noel duo, but I'm very big on Austin Wiley, as we talked about earlier. I think Chuma Okeke is a big breakout guy, and then I'm big on the fits of Harper and Brown, and kind of kind of how the rest of this roster comes together. It is worth noting Auburn's going to be pretty shorthanded, right? With Samir Doty's injured, D'Angelo Purifoy still serving his suspension, which I believe is 9 games. So I mean, if anyone's going to steal a win against Auburn, it's now when they're a little shorthanded.
Very fair point. Buffalo at West Virginia. I think this is actually technically a bye game. It won't feel like one for West Virginia. I mean, this is going to be a rock fight. Buffalo's got all these guards who can handle the ball. They should handle pressure, but they don't have their point guard situation is going to be interesting. Ronaldo Segu, the pretty regarded freshman, might start at point guard against this press. They also have guys like Carruthers, Javon Graves, who are Devontae Jordan, who are all good ball handlers, maybe not true point guards. I really want to bet on Buffalo. Let's do it. Buffalo.
Yep, I went with Buffalo too. I think they're experienced, and I think West Virginia is a little vulnerable, working in this new lineup. I think Buffalo starts their at-large campaign off on a strong foot. They have 3 really good seniors, CJ Massenberg, Nick Perkins, and Jeremy Harris. They can all shoot it. They're all very, very good offensive players. 3 of the best players in mid-major basketball. More so Harris and Massenberg than Perkins, but this is a pretty deep team for mid-major as well. So I'll go with Buffalo.
Very fair. Now we're going to each pick a bye game upset. That doesn't count Buffalo because I think that's a single-digit spread, and Buffalo is just a top 50 team. So my bye game upset, Lehigh beats Miami Friday night in Coral Gables. I think the crowd might be a little bit sleepy. Lehigh's got some really good guards. New kind of system. Defensively might be a wreck for Miami in terms of how they're going to defend these really good Lehigh guards. I'm going to go with Lehigh.
I wrote down 5 bye games. I crossed off West Virginia and Buffalo. I'll cross off Miami and Lehigh. Leaves me to 3. I think Yale and Cal is too low-hanging fruit.
Also not technically a bye game. They're playing in Shanghai.
Oh, so cross that one off. So we're down to Wichita State versus Louisiana Tech or UCLA versus Long Beach. I think I'll go with Wichita State. A lot of roster turnover. Louisiana Tech, I believe, is top 150 in KenPom. So I think I'll go with that as my bye game upset.
Here's my one that I kind of like. DePaul loses to Bethune-Cookman to open the year.
No way.
Bethune-Cookman's the MEAC favorite. They've got high major athletes all over that roster. Chantrez Davis, who was committed to Nevada, got kind of boxed out in a roster crunch. Isaiah Bailey, I think, started his career at Auburn. I want to say maybe Fresno State. Malik Maitland's a really good point guard. They got dudes.
Well, hopefully for the sake of the Big East, not
for Dave Lato.
a bye game loss, lower the net rating, the Met rating, whatever the hell it is. Who knows?
Finally, we're going to wrap this up. We're going to bet on Siena and Providence. Rivalry game. Kevin, growing up, myself, watching Siena basketball in the Fred McCaffrey era. Brad, Providence alum. So we won't get Providence Northwestern except in the NCAA Tournament in an 8-9 game this year. Siena Providence is what we're going to get. 21.4 point favorites is Providence on T-Rank. That was the best place I could find to kind of spread for this game because there's no lines yet on any of the Vegas sites for the college basketball games. So we'll bet on that spread. I think there's no doubt Providence wins this game straight up, Brad. I mean, Providence is a good basketball team. Siena won 8 games last year and loses their 6 top scorers from that team. I think Siena definitely covers that. It's always tough because late in these bye games, sometimes it can fall apart. I think Siena hangs in this game for 30 minutes, and then whether they blow it to over 21, that's something else. But I think they hang in this game.
So your pick is Siena covers?
Yeah, I'll bet on covering. Why not?
Yeah, I'll go Providence. Although I think that Cooley might get a little too cute with playing everyone and in the first half and be up like 7 or 8 at the half, and we'll be really nervous, and then kind of stick with the best 5 or 6 in the second half and kind of extend the lead there.
I'll give you 3 players to watch for Siena since I'm sure you haven't done much scouting. Couple of freshmen, Georges Darwich, Romanian import, and then there's Jalen Pickett, who's kind of a 6'4" combo wing guard guy. Compared to his AAU coach called him the guard version of Draymond Green. He led the entire EYBL circuit in offensive rating in 2017. Then went prep at Spire and had a really good year, average like 14 and 8, I want to say, and 5 assists. He could play the 1 or the 2, and then they also have Manny Camper, who is a super athletic kind of 6'6" combo forward. Who didn't play a ton last year, was like a triple-double threat in high school at a really small high school in Maryland, and now it is a really good fit for the Mayhem system that Jamie and Chris is going to employ.
Cool. I mean, I'm sure you know enough about Providence, but in terms of guys to watch, David Duke's probably going to start a point guard. It's going to be interesting. As a freshman, Jimmy Nichols, another interesting freshman, very, very athletic, all over, very active, very long, offensive rebounder. I think Nate Watson could have a big game if he gets a lot of low post touches against, a mid-major front court. He's a very good low post scorer despite his other deficiencies.
Yeah, if Siena lets this game get into the half court on defense, if Providence can get consistent post up for Nate Watson, Sammy Friday and Evan Fisher have no chance. They're going to kill on in the paint like that. But if Siena can force a bunch of turnovers on a freshman point guard, get out and run, get a bunch of easy buckets, and just make 10 threes, they could hang in.
I think that'll do it for tonight.
Yeah, I believe it will. I love how we'll
keep track of these picks throughout the season. We'll keep you guys updated on how things are going, and it'll be very interesting looking back because most of these are season long. Not like intermediate bets. Maybe a little later we'll do some more short term of these wagers to get some instant results, but certainly interesting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how we as soon as the season starts, we're not doing conference previews. We'll shorten up these podcasts and we pump out another hour, 20-minute show today. So we just love talking. If you don't enjoy us talking, this is probably not the podcast for you, but we appreciate you guys listening as always. We've made it to college basketball. We'll probably be back some point on the weekend. Just talking about opening week, giving all of our thoughts on what's went down because it's going to be exciting to watch. Just getting teams back in action. I'm going to try to see as many different teams as I can in situations where I can actually evaluate them because it's tough because you want to bounce around, but then if you bounce around too much, then you don't actually evaluate them. And also if you bounce around too much, you wind up I was going to try to watch the second half of the such and such game and it winds up being a blowout and you don't see anybody you want to see. So it'll be a fun weekend. I'll be pumping out tweets. So be on the lookout for that. I'm sure Brad will be too, even though he's not as aggressive a tweeter as I am.
Yeah, so my plan for Tuesday is going to Providence, Siena. Live about 40 minutes away from Providence, so should be back for the start of Duke and Kentucky. Maybe catch some Florida State in there as well, because Providence, Siena is a 6:30 tip. Then watch that, and then second half probably is going to end up being BYU Nevada because Western Kentucky's roster is full of shit now that everything's up in the air. And then Wednesday, Ohio State, Cincinnati, and hopefully watch a replay of Kansas, Michigan State after that.
Yeah, that's pretty similar to my schedule, except I don't get to go to Providence, Siena. Stuck out here in Illinois. I thought about going to UMKC Loyola just to see like the banner raising, but I was like, you know what? I would rather be like in my room watching like as many games as I can than like trying to watch like a meaningless game just so I can be credentialed for our banner raising, Yeah. All right. Well, we'll wrap this one up. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, retweet, tell your friends to listen to CBB Central Podcast, the best podcast for all things college basketball throughout the season. Thanks for listening. Hope you all have a great start to your college basketball season.